You know that sinking feeling you get in a math class? That little voice that tells you you're just not a math person? Well, you are definitely not alone. But what if that entire feeling, that whole story we tell ourselves, is based on a myth? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on why math feels so uniquely difficult and maybe discover a truth that could change everything for you.
This question, man, it's at the heart of so much stress for so many people. We've all been there, right? Staring at a page of symbols that looks like it's from another planet. In this explainer, we're not going to find just one single answer, but we are going to unpack the key reasons why this feeling is just so incredibly common.
And that's exactly what it feels like, isn't it? A brick wall. You know, you're cruising along just fine in your other subjects, and then bam, math class. And you hit this barrier that just feels impossible to get over. It's such a shared experience, and it's time we really understood where it comes from.
Yeah, because this isn't just a you problem. It's a widespread phenomenon. So let's start by looking at this universal struggle and some of the powerful and honestly kind of damaging beliefs that surround it.
Okay, here it is. The core myth that trips up so many of us. We're taught to believe that math is some innate talent. You're either born with it or you're not. But the reality? Well, think about it. If you believe you can't do math, you're not going to want to practice, you'll be too scared to ask questions, and, well, eventually, that belief just becomes your reality. It's a classic self-fulfilling prophecy.
And that whole cycle of doubt, that self-fulfilling prophecy, it feeds into something way bigger. You start to realize the problem isn't even the numbers on the page anymore. The real equation we need to solve is the one that involves our own anxiety.
And it actually has a name, math anxiety. It's a genuine psychological response, this feeling of tension and fear that literally gets in the way of you thinking clearly. Now look closely at that last line on the slide, because this is the most important part. It's not a reflection of ability. How freeing is that? The fear you feel has nothing to do with how capable you actually are.
This is the internal monologue for millions of people. This sense of just giving up. It's the voice of math anxiety that convinces you to walk away from the problem, not because you can't solve it, but because you've been tricked into believing that people like you just aren't supposed to be able to.
So, where does this all come from? I mean, it really just appears out of thin air. It's usually born from experiences just like these. Maybe it was one intimidating teacher who made you feel small for asking a question. Or maybe you hit a wall with, I don't know, fractions, and then it felt like the whole world was moving on without you. These are the moments that create that fixed mindset. You either get it or you don't.
But it's not just anxiety. There are some real structural reasons that math feels so different from other subjects. So let's dig into what it is about the subject itself that makes it so uniquely challenging for us. It really boils down to three key things that we're going to break down one by one. How math is often taught, its unique ladder-like structure, and its pretty abstract nature.
Now, this slide is really interesting when you look at the contrast. On one side, you've got rote memorization. That's like just memorizing a squared plus b squared equals c squared without having any idea what a right-angled triangle even is. It's just a bunch of meaningless letters. But on the other hand, you have conceptual understanding. That's all about the why. It's knowing why that formula works, which lets you actually use it to, build something. Too often, school gets us stuck just memorizing the letters.
And this latter analogy is perfect for our second point. Look, in a subject like history, you can be a little shaky on one topic and still totally get the next one. But math is a ladder. Every single concept is a step that rests on the one right before it. If your foundation in division is weak, fractions are going to feel impossible. If you miss just one step, the whole climb gets wobbly.
Okay, so we've talked about the anxiety, we've talked about the structural challenges, now we get to the most important part of this whole explainer, the big mindset shift that can actually change everything.
This right here, this is the single most important idea we're going to cover. Let's just say it again. Math's difficulty stems from external factors, not an inherent flaw in the individual. I know how hard that can be to really believe, especially if you've struggled for years. But it is true. The problem was never you, it was the process.
So let's just redefine this phrase right now. Being bad at math? It's a myth. What it really means is that you just haven't found the explanation yet that clicks with your way of thinking. Everyone's brain is wired a little differently, and when math is only taught in one single rigid way, it's not just leaving people behind, it's failing them.
And this is maybe the most empowering truth of all. Math isn't some genetic lottery ticket. It is a skill. Just like learning to play an instrument or getting good at a sport. It takes practice, it takes patience, and it takes persistence. It's something that can be developed and strengthened and even mastered over time by anyone.
So, knowing all this, how can we actually start to change our relationship with math? Let's get into some real strategies for building your math confidence from the ground up.
All right, here's your new toolkit. First, always ask why. Don't just memorize the formula, try to understand the concept behind it. Second, reframe your mistakes. A wrong answer isn't a failure, it's just data. It's like a GPS saying, recalculating route. It just tells you where you need to focus next. Acknowledge your own learning style, and finally, just embrace the slow and steady process of building a skill. Practice, patience, persistence.
And that brings us to our final thought. For years, you might have told yourself a story about what you are and are not capable of. But after everything we've looked at today, just ask yourself this. What if that little two-word phrase, I can't, is the only brick wall that was ever really there?